Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for calling and logging in today for our special webinar that we have with a guest today, speaking on raw land and how to use your IRA, or maybe not necessarily your IRA, but specifically, but just what to look for when investing in raw land. We're fortunate enough to be joined by Mark Podolsky today, who's going to go into just a few minutes, go into details about what it is to invest in raw land, what the benefits are, and give us some pointers on how to do it and be successful in investing in raw land. My name is Scott Maurer. I'm the Director of Business Development for Advanta IRA. I'll be hosting the webinar today, and we'll give you a few details on Advanta in just a moment. As far as my background, for anyone who's not familiar, I am a licensed attorney. I don't do any legal work, though, for Advanta clients. But I've been with the company for quite a while now and spent more of the last few years doing the marketing side and education side of the business. So I'm frequently on the webinars, and again, I'm happy today to be joined by somebody who's going to give you a little bit more different information from what we ordinarily give out during our webinars. Just a quick disclaimer on Advanta, though. We do not endorse any particular products or provide any investment advice, especially when it comes to legal tax situations. We can go through legal issues and go through some tax issues potentially with you, but when you need final determinations, we would refer you to an attorney or to your CPA before entering into the transaction, especially, again, endorsing any particular investments. We're going to talk about raw land today as an investment. It's certainly something that can be done inside a self-directed IRA, but whether that's right for you, or if you are a raw land investor, whether a particular lot or acreage is right for you, that determination is solely yours. Just a quick background on our company. We've been around since 2004. The only thing we do at Advanta is administer self-directed IRAs. We don't handle any non-qualified money. So all the funds and assets that we administer are assets of an IRA account, whether it is a piece of raw land, whether it's a rental property, a rehab, a private loan. Those are the only types of assets that we can hold on to. And the accounts we have are IRAs, whether it's a self-directed traditional, Roth, SEP IRAs, even some 401k funds as well. But we can't handle any personal money. It's got to be strictly qualified funds. I really think the advantage we have over a lot of our competitors is we do have a local feel to our clients. I mean, we have clients who live geographically close to our offices that can come in and stop and meet with us face-to-face. But even for clients who are outside of maybe driving distance from one of our office, they still get an account manager if you're a client, and get more of a personal relationship with somebody here at the office who will help you through a transaction and answer any questions you have regarding your account. I think a lot of our feedback has been a lot of people really appreciate that and getting that more one-on-one attention. Now, as far as the types of assets that can be held in an IRA account, just to recap for some of you on the call who are familiar with this already and introduce it to those who maybe are not, any type of real estate can be held in an IRA as long as it is for investment purposes. Whether it's a rehab, a residential condo rental property, timeshares, we even have some clients investing in commercial property. And certainly, as we'll talk about today, you can invest in raw land within your IRA account. What I'm excited today about having Mark join us is the fact that we don't see a lot of clients investing in raw land. We see a lot more rentals and rehabs, but I know certainly there are ways to make money, ways to be successful in investing with raw land, and Mark will share that with us in just a moment. In addition to the real estate, the hard assets of land, we also see individuals investing in mortgage loans, tax liens, unsecured notes, a lot of what I call paper assets, where the investment is actually just a piece of paper, can be held within an IRA account and have your returns be the interest on a loan, or maybe signing a contract. I think that might be something that Mark talks about in a minute as well. And we also have various other assets that we hold: LLCs, farm animals, equipment leasing. We have people that have bought real estate for the purposes of harvesting timber. So that's maybe something that will tie in a little bit with what Mark's going to talk about. We've even had clients invest in land and derive some of the income from the selling of oranges off the property as well. But there are a lot of different things the IRS does permit within an IRA. The only things they do not allow you to invest in are either collectibles or life insurance. So really, there's quite a number of different things. These are some of the more common assets that we see that are outside of real estate. People investing in precious metals, commodities, foreign currency trading, et cetera. But again, today's seminar, we're going to focus primarily on investing in raw land. And just to go through a quick example of how that process works, We'll take a fictional client, John Smith, someone who wants to buy a piece of raw land with his IRA account. John Smith would open up an account with Advanta, fill out our paperwork to get the IRA opened, get funds transferred from his current custodian over into the Advanta account, and then when he goes to buy the property, he actually writes the contract in the name of the IRA. So the buyer's name that will be on the deed and on the title would be Advanta IRA for benefit of John Smith's IRA and his account number. He will complete a form with us telling us what asset it is that he is purchasing. And then our job at Advanta is to work with the title company, the attorney that is handling the closing, to make sure that that wording on the contract appears on all of the closing documents and especially appears on the deed as well. We will make sure that John Smith, in this instance, approves all of the paperwork for us. He will review the contract, review the deed, review the HUD statement, approve it for us, and then ultimately we will sign the documents and wire the funds to closing. So he would have opened up as an account, transferred a tax-free transfer from his current IRA into the IRA account with us, and then directed us to buy the property in the name of his IRA account. Again, that's important. It's John Smith's IRA as its own entity that is buying the property, not him personally. Now, when he goes to sell the property, whatever gains he makes, it's really not important necessarily on the numbers, and Mark maybe gets more into here in a minute into the details as far as what you can do and ways to earn income. The important thing is just so the income, the gain on that property, whatever John Smith decides to do with it, all of the gains are going to come back in completely tax-free inside the IRA account. Outside of an IRA, you might be subject to ordinary income on short-term capital gains or even capital gains taxes. But within the IRA, all of the income is going to be tax-free to the IRA. Ultimately, you may be taxed on the funds with a traditional IRA account. If you invest with a Roth IRA, huge benefit is that the assets are going to be completely tax-free to you forever. So one more detail maybe on the IRA side of things, I'd be more than happy to take your questions and answer those separately. But today I want to focus primarily on getting Mark involved into the presentation. It's his time to shine. But I also want to tell anyone who's involved in the webinar here live, if you have questions as we go through today, please type your questions in the chat box on your screen, and I'll be monitoring those and make sure Mark answers those. Or if there's for me, I can certainly answer them as well. So please type your questions into the chat box as we go. But at this time, I want to introduce Mark Podolsky, also known as the Land Geek. And Mark has been working in buying and selling real estate and raw land for over 14 years and has completed over 5,000 transactions. I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Mark, let you introduce yourself and tell everyone what they need to know about investing in raw land.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. So I wanted to kind of just explain real quickly, because I hate going on these webinars and hearing for 5 minutes the speaker's story. But just real quickly, I want to kind of give everybody my background. Before I started investing full-time in buying and selling raw land, I was a investment banker. I specialized in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups, and I basically analyzed private companies all day long. We hired this guy, new to our firm, and we're out for drinks, and he's telling me that on the side, he's going to tax deed auctions, and he's buying up properties, pennies on the dollar, and flipping them online. So I said, well, what kind of returns are you making? He's like 300%. So I don't believe him, of course. So we go to New Mexico together, and I spent like $3,000 on auction and bought up 10 parcels for like nothing. Sure enough, put them up online. I made 300%. 18 months later, I had made enough money to quit my job as an investment banker, which I was pretty miserable at. And since 2001, I've now been doing this full time. So what we're going to talk about very quickly this morning, and I know it's kind of cheesy, the passive income system. It's really what I want to talk about is my strategy. It's not necessarily a system. It's more a strategy. It's one of many that you can utilize in your portfolio at Advanta so that you can generate quick cash or start generating even passive income tax deferred through your self-directed IRA. So let's move on. Basically, the reason I like raw land so much is, I'm trying to change slides here. Scott, can you see the new slide? Here we go.
Mark, I just moved it for you, but you should have the controls there. If you don't, let me know, and I'll just advance the slide.
Okay. Oh, okay, I got it now. Okay, show next slide. All right, so basically, the reason I prefer raw land over any other asset class with real estate is raw land is an asset that is very simple, right? Especially the way with my strategy. So we've got no renters, we've got no renovations, no repairs, and no rodents, the way that I do it. And we're going to talk a lot about that. Plus, land is a very low stress, right? It's the only thing that lasts. That's a famous quote from Ted Turner. And you can get amazing returns with this strategy. It's typically thought of with raw land that, you know, when we think of raw land, we think of billionaires, we think of developers, and yeah, they do own productive land, timberland, farms. Warren Buffett as well is, you know, huge into raw land. He loves it as an investment. This is not this is not our niche. So that is a fantastic way to invest in land, but it really helps if you can start with, you know, $10 to $100 million. The property that we're going to talk about today is property that everybody can afford. Everybody can afford, and we'll kind of expound on that now. Okay, so basically what we're going to talk about is how you can basically acquire properties for $100 or less and flip them. Not all the properties are going to be $100 or less, but it's possible to find. I mean, these are the numbers we're talking about. We're talking about very, very low numbers. And we're going to focus on 300% returns on flips, and then we can put a note on that property and do owner financing and make over 1,000%. And the great thing about raw land is that we don't have to worry about any Dodd-Frank issues or RESPA issues because there's no tenant. So we can do this as many times as we want. We don't have to worry about that. So the great thing about owning land is that there's always going to be inherent value in it no matter what. And this is how I convinced my wife that I could do this full time. I said, look, even if I can't sell the land, worst case, we own land. And I don't have to, you know, maintain it. I don't have to do anything with it. I just have to pay very low property taxes, and that's it. So it's you know, it's another reason why I love this asset. Within the strategy, right, the way that I do it, I don't do it on a part-time basis. This is a full-time business for me. And we've created, well, you know, it's a system basically. We create systems. So we have a deal flow system, we have a marketing system, and within those systems, we utilize very inexpensive virtual assistants so that 90% of the day-to-day can be outsourced, right? And so we're working on our business, not in our business. And, you know, so people would say, well, how is that passive? Well, I would make an argument that anytime that you're investing in real estate, it's really not a passive investment. It's not like even putting money in a mutual fund, right? Which you say, oh, that's totally passive. Well, yeah, but you had to earn the money. You traded dollars for hours, earn that money. You had to have discipline, save that money, and then trust that mutual fund advisor with your money, and then they're basically doing the work, but you've then given up all the control. So we're going to have total control in this model, in this strategy, where we're buying and selling raw land. All right, so just to quickly recap, what we're going to talk about this morning, we're going to learn how to buy and sell raw land for quick cash profits. We're also going to learn about how we can create a passive income through owner financing, and how to hire inexpensive virtual assistants to do most of the work for us. And I just want to quickly talk to you about my why, right? So why do I like to talk about this and share this strategy with so many people is basically when I first got out of college, I worked with dentists before I started doing investment banking. What I found with my first mentor, Raj, was that dentists have what we call sole economic dependency. That is, if they weren't working, they weren't making any money. And when we extrapolate that out, I mean, lots of professionals are in that, right? Because if you're a doctor or a lawyer or, a teacher, anyone with a job, a freelancer, you're trading dollars for hours and there's no passive income for you. And if you love what you do, that's a bonus, but you still want to have some type of passive income strategy because that takes a huge toll over time. So here's a way that is simple within the realm of real estate to start building up your passive income portfolio and have total control. All right, so when I would go on these road trips with Raj, we would kind of discuss, okay, what's the perfect business? And the characteristics of a perfect business to us, it had no physical inventory, it was a one-time sale, and then recurring revenue. Our customer had a built-in incentive to continue paying us for our product or service, and a niche without competitive pricing pressures. Can you guess what we came up with as the perfect business? That's right, it wasn't raw land, it was life insurance. It was life insurance. However, the only issue with life insurance was that it wasn't a niche without competitive pricing pressures, and most people, avoid their life insurance agents like the plague at parties. But after that, I would argue, and I've got a podcast called the Best Passive Income Model Podcast, that raw land investing is the perfect business because raw land is not physical. The way that we invest in the property, it's a one-time sale, right? And then we get that recurring revenue with no payments. Our customer has a built-in incentive to continue paying us or they're going to lose their land, and no one talks about this niche. So we have a niche without competitive pricing pressures, and the great thing about raw land is that you can't go on Zillow and look at comparable sales. Land prices are sort of the last asset class. It's just very difficult to find what the pricing are, what the pricing is, and so you have you can have amazing margins on the pricing because of that. Now, again, we're not taking advantage of these customers with our large margins because we're buying it so right. In fact, you can even wholesale out these parcels out and still make tremendous margins. And the person on the other end has an incredible investment that they could even flip as well. So this is the big secret is, again, we're going to sell the land on land notes or owner financing, and we're going to use a land contract. We're not going to do a deed of trust because when I first started, I would do deeds of trust, and what happened was because of the low price of the properties, people would have to be foreclosed on. I would spend thousands of dollars getting the property back, but with a land contract, they miss their payment, and that's it because the property stays in our name. And again, very simple. So now this is, I would consider it a phenomenal retirement strategy because basically, if you want to make $150,000 a year in retirement, right, you're going to have to save $4.2 million with an average yield on your investments of 6%. That's a lot of money to have to put away and get that return. But with land investing, with my model, right, and the great thing about this business is the way I'm going to show you is there's going to be no travel, no maintenance, very little upfront money, and virtually no competition. And again, we have no tenants, no toilets, no termites. You're basically going to see that this is an amazing way to have passive income, and all you have to do to create, let's say $10,000 a month in recurring income, you need to do only 103 deals, right, at $97 a month, and then you're at $10,000. If you want to have even more, you could even, I have a slide here with 22 deals. So the great thing again about land, it's simple, no tenants, no toilets, no termites, and we can make it cash flow. and there's low competition. All right, so this is what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on properties that have assessed value of $30,000 or less. Because when I go to a county and I start looking at the list, I want to avoid all the physical structures. I don't want commercial property. I don't want housing. And usually when we get down to lots or acreage, the assessed values are much lower, $30,000 or less. Now I have a really good list. So now let's take a look at it from the other end, at a macro perspective, right? How many people actually want raw land? Well, there was a study done, and there's huge demand for rural properties. Huge demand, because what people, when they were surveyed, they said, well, yeah, I'd love to be on the outskirts of the bigger cities because I can avoid crime, I can avoid traffic, congestion, and crowds. So we have this big, big market. And so if we look at land versus, let's say, rental properties, again, we're going to have no maintenance, no effort, and no tenants. And I've got a buddy who he owns 20 houses, and all weekend he's dealing with tenant issues. And he's complaining about how the tenants are messing with his house. And it's just never-ending headaches. So again, I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse. I love the simplicity of raw land. All right, so we're going to focus on properties $30,000 or less. And then here's where we're going to flip them, right? We're going to go to the platforms, because let's just go where our buyers are. My favorite platform right now is Craigslist. It's free, and properties sell very quickly on Craigslist. The second place is eBay. Now, you're not going to get the highest prices on eBay, but there's still demand. And then there's sites like landandfarm.com, landwatch.com, landsofamerica.com, landflip.com, landhub.com. There are specific marketing sites, marketing platforms that are dedicated strictly to raw land, right? So there you go. Now, who are we going to go after? Now, this is our market. We're looking for property owners that haven't paid their taxes, because when we don't value something, we don't pay our taxes. Now, it used to be when I first started that you could go to tax deed auctions and pick up tons of properties, pennies on the dollar, right? Now, today, those rooms are more full, and I have a simple maxim that I have up in my office. Never, ever overpay. If you look at this slide, you get a full room and you get an auctioneer. Whenever I see a full room in an auction, I just groan, right? So the way that I do it is I want to look at the auction calendar, and a month before that auction, maybe even 2 months before the auction, I'm going to send out offer letters directly to the owners that owe back taxes and live out of state. Owe back taxes and live out of state, right? They live out of state. They're not emotionally attached to that raw land. And if they owe back taxes, they're kind of advertising to the world there's an issue that they have with this property. Maybe this property has become a liability to them now, no longer an asset, and they want to get rid of it. So we're going to send them a lowball offer and then acquire that property before we have to get into this room with lots of people bidding up the parcels. So does that make sense? All right. So this is what I call the letter writing campaign. And that's exactly what we do. And we have certain counties that we like to focus on, and we just send them letters with offers. Now, I don't want to be in the appraisal business. I don't want to send out an offer saying, hey, we're interested in your property. You know, go to this website, fill out this form if you're interested, right? I actually send them a purchase agreement, an offer agreement for that property at a price. Because again, I want that low-hanging fruit. They owe back taxes. They live out of state. And I don't want to be in the appraisal business with lots of activity and I'm on the phone all day talking to people about their property and them trying to get information from me what their property is worth. So this is the $1 million tip. We're going to contact the county. We're going to ask the county treasurer for their the treasurer's list of people that owe back taxes. We're going to contact them with an offer. Then we're going to directly buy the property, 20, 30 cents on the dollar from the owner, and then we're going to sell that property within days or even weeks for thousands of dollars more than we paid for it.
Hey, Mark, if I can just jump in with a quick question. You said you're going to contact the county's back tax list. Is there a certain type of county demographic that you're looking for? When you're looking for different, if you're looking at any particular state, what counties would you look for in particular, or does it not necessarily matter?
With the model, it doesn't necessarily matter. It just matters on how much capital you have to start with, right? So you can pick up inexpensive lots, infill lots, and when I say inexpensive, relatively inexpensive, right? Anywhere in the country, right? But I don't want to target Manhattan property. I don't want to be in the big cities. I want to go out into the more rural communities where there's lots of inexpensive property, and I can be in the path of growth. So that's really that market in my niche. I live in Scottsdale. I don't go I don't make offers in Maricopa County because land is $1 million, $2 million. It's just too expensive. That's more for developers. Let them take all the risk. I want to buy property on the outskirts of town that's a lot less expensive, possibly in the path of growth. But even if it's not in the path of growth, if I can buy an asset 10, 20 cents on the dollar, there's someone on the other end of that deal at some point. So that's really what I want to focus on. And yeah, so Scott, does that answer that question?
It does, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack it too much. That was a great answer. I just wanted to get a little feedback on that. But go ahead.
Yeah. So not a problem. So what I want to talk about, like if you go to a site called taxsalelists.com, and we talked about getting the auction calendar. This is a great site to go to because it lists all the county tax deed and tax lien auctions. But what you'll find is that there's millions of parcels where people owe back taxes. I mean, this is a huge, huge market. If we just get a tiny fraction of that market, we've got ourselves a nice little business, right? Just a tiny fraction. Okay.
And Mark, I want to jump in real quick. We had somebody just raise their hand. Again, if you have questions for Mark or for myself even, just please make sure you type those into the chat box on your screen, and we'll get to those. But yeah, if you have a question, just please type it in.
Right. So what I love about this model is that it's the ultimate simplification of real estate investing, right? All you have here is a seller, a property, and a buyer. And Scott, this is going to amaze you, but sometimes when I buy properties for $5,000 or less, I just do my own due diligence. I don't even close with a title company. I'll use a service like notarypro.com, and they'll act as de facto escrow for me. So my VA will do all the due diligence. We'll get all the maps. We'll get the plat map, and we'll look to make sure that there's no liens or encumbrances. We have a clean title. We'll make sure that there's legal ingress and egress, that is, people can find the property, right? We'll quickly go on EPA.gov, make sure there's no issues as far as environmental issues, right? And then we'll create like a simple little property report, and then that's it. We'll pick up that property directly from the owner, and we don't have those frictional costs. So there you go.
Okay. Well, actually, Mark, we had a couple of questions come up, and maybe get a couple of them answered here as we go through.
Right.
Someone said they're looking at Cape Coral, Florida tax lien. They want to know if that's a good area. I don't know how much you know about Florida, but maybe the other second part of their question you could address is how do you know the area is in the path of growth?
Yeah, so you don't necessarily, unless you're going to focus on that. So for me, the way you'll know if it's in the path of growth when you start doing your due diligence is you're going to call planning and zoning, right? And you can contact them and find out, what developer has filed maps and what's going on in this area, and they'll be happy to tell you, this is currently what's going on. They're very proud about it, actually. So there's a number of ways to do that. You can also see Department of Transportation areas where highways are being built out and where those are expanding. So, there's definitely some clues there as well. Now, as far as Cape Coral, Florida is concerned, I love Florida. Absolutely love it. And it sells really well. And the only issue with Florida is it's a little bit more competitive than other areas. But Scott, I'll be honest with you. The only areas I focus on are the Southwest, California, and Florida. I completely avoid the Midwest and the East Coast, simply because I want to acquire properties where the majority of people want to be. Not that, people in Missouri wouldn't want to live in, people who really live in Missouri wouldn't want Missouri land, right? But if I can buy a piece of property in California, I've got people in New York, I've got people in Connecticut. I mean, I've got people all over the country that would want to invest in that parcel versus a smaller pool that might want to be in Arkansas or Missouri or Oklahoma.
Okay.
Right.
I have a couple more questions to hit, and then we'll get you back on track. One was what are the risks of doing owner financing or land notes? What is the risk in holding those assets?
There really isn't a risk if you bought right. There's an issue that they won't pay, but so what? We'll just resell it again. I mean, I'll give you an example, and it's not something that I'm proud of, but I bought a 40-acre parcel for $2,500 in Nevada, and this is the market value for these properties were over $20,000. So, I like to create a note. So I got my $2,500 on the down payment, and this person was paying me like I like to do a car payment, right? So about $249 a month or less for owner financing. And they're paying at about 11% interest. So very easy financing terms. So after about 5 years of making payments, things happened. They lost their job, and I had to take the property back on the land contract, which, because it was a land contract, there were no costs involved. I tried to rework the note with that buyer because, I'd already made 1,000% return on that property, but even then, just anything was too much. So the next week, I resold that property again at the same terms to a new buyer, and now again, that property is generating the same amount of income. So, these things can just become like long-term bonds after a while. And I don't do credit checks because I'm so comfortable with my marketing program that I can just quickly resell these properties. There's just, a huge market for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Certainly, I think that, the risk, I think, with buying any real estate, like you said, if you buy it, you paid too much initially, you might have an issue later on of losing money because the property is simply not worth what you paid for it. Next question.
Yeah, and here's the statistic for you. Since I've been doing this, since 2001 full time, this is crazy. I have never lost money on a deal. I've never lost money on one deal. There was one development that I invested in, and it was, I thought I was so smart, Scott. I went into, of course, Pennsylvania, and I went into this community that was overdeveloped. I mean, I was picking up properties for $50 from the Property Owners Association. I made a deal with the county, and I picked up like the whole development, right? And 2008 happened, and I made about $100,000 on that one deal. Where I was telling my wife, we're going to make millions of dollars on this, and that was a one deal where, there was just no demand at that time, and the deal that I made with that Property Owners Association, I had to take back.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other, and just two questions kind of back on top of each other, and it's basically the same question. If you're buying land that has back taxes that are still owed, do you have to pay those, or who does pay those taxes? I'm assuming if you own the property, you're going to have to settle up with the county, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it just depends on the property and how you're going to do your marketing. So typically, I will not pay the back taxes right away. I will typically, if I'm going to flip it for cash, then once I get once I have my buyer, they pay me. And before I convey title, then I'll pay the back taxes. right? And that helps me with my cash flow. Now, on a note, and I have somebody paying on a note, and then on the down payment, that's at the point where I'll then pay the back taxes. Now, in certain situations on a tax deed auction, right, there's certain situations where I call a deed grabber situation. It might be a week, it might be a day before that property is going to go to auction. Then you've got to pay the property taxes before the county auctions it. Now, a tax lien, you've got a lot more time because with a tax lien, it's just back taxes and penalties. You just pay the county; they pay that lien investor off, and now you've got it free and clear. So
Okay,
liens are a little bit easier, flexibility-wise.
Okay, last question I'm going to answer quickly, and then I'll let you get on. Somebody said, what is the risk specific to land notes done in an IRA? I think the risk is still the same. If you're holding an asset in an IRA account, and you end up having to, as Mark said, so you do it as an owner-financed mortgage, where you have the issue with having to have your IRA now foreclose on the property and actually having your IRA pay an attorney to go through that process. Or even if you are doing the land contract, as Mark has mentioned, it's still just the fact of if you bought the land and paid too much up front, and at the end of the day the property is worth less than what you paid, and you sell it, you have a loss now to your IRA, and a loss in an IRA is not tax deductible to you. So just as the gains are not included in your income, any losses don't get to become a deduction to you. So that's kind of the risks that are going to be very similar to in an IRA or not in an IRA. As far as holding a mortgage versus a land contract, and again, the difference only being that you can't deduct any loss. So just Mark, really quickly on the taxsalelist.com, someone remarked they went to that website, just said, they don't see a county tax lien website. Is it just a portal kind of to get to those other websites?
Yeah, I mean, it should be. You can go to taxsalelist.com. You can go to etaxsales.com, and you can get lists there as well. Another site I really love is listsource.com as well, where we can get lists. Yeah. But taxsalelist.com should show you somewhere on that site the auction calendar.
Okay. All right, let's go. Yeah. Let's get back going. I'm sorry to interrupt there for questions, but keep them coming, and we'll let Mark continue on.
All right, so let's just go through a deal real quickly, okay? Let's go. It's because really we have 5 steps. And that's it. All right, so step 1, again, we're going to find the sellers that no longer want their property. And again, that model is they live out of state and they owe back taxes. That's it. Assessed values of $30,000 or less. And Scott, I'll be honest with you, I don't like real small parcels. I want to go after parcels that are an acre or more, an acre to 640 acres, right? This real smaller lots, they will sell. Everything will sell. It's much slower. So if I'm going to go after the low-hanging fruit, I want an acre or up to 640 acres or more, depending on my capital. All right. Step 2, again, we're sending out low-ball offers to the potential sellers. Low-ball offers, 10, 20, 30 cents a dollar. I use Google Voice because I'll get very nasty phone calls back from sellers that are just so insulted. If we're not insulting our sellers, we're not working hard enough. That's what I like to say. So low ball offers to those sellers. We're not in the negotiating business. Okay, we don't want to just be on the phone all day. Step 3, due diligence is so critical. Due diligence is so critical. I do not get on airplanes anymore like I did in the old days. I don't get in the car and drive 6 hours, right? All the due diligence, 95% of it can be done virtually on Google Earth. I use a program called expertgps.com where you can just plug in the legal description. It'll give you the latitude, the longitude. You can go and virtually see it on Google Earth. And then what I do is I set up a Craigslist gig, right? And I have somebody local, and I want them to actually stomp on that property. I want to know for certain, for $50, I want to get videos. I want to get pictures. I want to know, what are the neighbors like? If there's somebody putting a abandoned old car on the property or abandoned old shack, I want to know that, okay? I want to know can they even find that property? Is it on the side of the mountain? What's the soil like, right? So somebody needs to physically stomp on that property. It's not going to be me. That's not a good use of my time, but definitely my local representative is going to do that. $50. Now, if you don't trust the people on Craigslist, there's also another site called WeGoLook.com. Phenomenal. It's a little bit more money, but they will go and research that property for you. So then we want to get plat maps. We want to get aerial maps. We want to show our potential buyer as much as we know about that property and explain it to them, very clearly. Step 4, we're going to market that property on the internet platforms that already have a lot of traffic. We don't need to generate our own traffic. We don't need to do PPC campaigns on Google, right? We're going to go where people are already looking. Again, those platforms are going to be Craigslist, eBay, landandfarm.com, landflip.com, landwatch.com, landsofamerica.com, landhub.com, right? So we're going to market that property. Ideally, I'd like to flip these properties or put a note on them 30 days or less. If it's taking longer than 30 days, I need to go revisit some pricing or something that's wrong with my offer, because that's how quickly these properties should sell. All right. Now, this is a different strategy. I like to create what I call a massive buyers list. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this presentation, but basically what I like to do is be able to email to my list that I have this property for sale and sell it within minutes, right? Or even hours, or at worst case, a couple days. But that's a whole other thing. All right, now we're going to sell the property. My favorite part, and again, very simple, because you're just dealing with the buyer. You can have a promissory note, a purchase sale agreement, and a land contract. You can put a note on that property, or again, you can just deed that property over. Very simple to do yourself. You can go to deeds.com and you can purchase your state's, deed. A special warranty deed is a little bit safer than a warranty deed. A special warranty deed warrants that since you've owned the property, there's no liens or encumbrances, versus a warranty deed which says from the beginning of time, then the chain of title, there's no liens or encumbrances. All right, and again, here's some great marketing platforms. Oh, I forgot about Backpage.com. Bid for Assets, ignore that. I don't like that site anymore. They're not spending enough on marketing. But all these other marketing platforms, as we've discussed, are great. All right. Now another strategy. Scott, do we have time to talk about options?
We certainly do.
Okay, so another strategy I like to use is option strategies, because sometimes I don't know about the market. I might be going into a new market and I want to just test the market. So I'll say to my seller, hey, look, I know you want this amount of money for this property, but I just don't know the market. So what I'll do is for 95 to 180 days, you're going to sign this option contract, and I'm going to give you $50 for the option, and I'm going to market the property. If I can make some money on this property, then we will exercise our option and buy the property at our agreed upon amount and then sell the property for you. And because this is such a non-competitive niche, our sellers don't have, a bunch of options to go on, right? So they say, sure, not a problem, because there's no other game in town except for us. So that's a phenomenal way to pick up properties and then quickly sell them if we can. Now, if we can't sell them, then not a problem. And this is another way to wholesale, right? So you have the option contract, and you can go to a company like me, and let's say you've got the contract for $5,000. You can flip it for $10,000 because you know that based on the comps, the properties were $20,000. So there's what I like to call enough meat on the bone for the retailer to make that money. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's another option. Now, here's the devil's advocate. The devil's advocate says, well, what if you can't sell that property, right? You're stuck. Well, you're not really stuck, are you? Because on an option, you've really only lost maybe $50 on a low-cost option and a little bit of marketing time. That's really it. The other worst case scenario is if you buy that property, again, you have an asset that lasts forever. At some point, somebody's going to buy that property. Again, 5,000 deals. I've never been stuck with a property. All right, so as a wholesaler, your worst case scenario is typically you'll make a profit of only 30 to 100%, which I don't think anyone would be upset about at all. But because we get spoiled in this little niche of making 300 to 1,000%, 30 to 100% can sometimes feel disappointing. But then when you talk to your friends who are doing other things, it helps you kind of put things in perspective. All right, this is a great way to supplement your retirement. Again, that one-time sale, and you get that passive income coming in every single month. All right, so how many deals do you need to do before your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses? Average family American income is $52,100. That's $43.41 a month. You just need to do 22 deals. 22 deals, and you're good to go. And you can see this is what it looks like for me. I wake up in the morning, I get my report. I use a company called notecollection.com, and they basically just collect the money and handle all the 1098s for my customers at the end of the year because of tax time, so they can deduct the interest on their tax return. And I just get money sent to my bank account every single day. And you can see what some of these notes look like, just as a little example. So here's a little car payment, $149 a month. All right, so a lot of people ask me, what percentage should I do if I don't have a lot of cash? And I like to tell everybody, okay, just do a 75-25 split, because if you're flipping at 300%, then it won't take you too long before you generate enough cash where you can start doing owner financing. When I first started, that was like my big mistake. In 2001, all I did was flip, and I never did owner financing. I didn't start owner financing until 2007, and I have friends who started owner financing way before me. They're like at $40,000 a month, $80,000 a month, $50,000 a month, just in passive income now on other owner financing deals. I'm getting close to that, but if I had started in 2001, I'd be way ahead of the game in doing that. Scott, is it okay to talk about the podcast?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about this niche, I do have additional information. You can go on iTunes. I have the Land Geek podcast. I've also started a new podcast called The Best Passive Income Model. And you can learn a lot more about this niche. Again, not many people talk about it. I'm also on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/coffee talk and see my geeky face, drink a cup of coffee, and give you a couple tips. And there you go. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Mark, well, hopefully anyone who's got some more questions, please type them in. I had another one or two come in during this last part of the presentation. Someone's asking, what methods do you use to price the property? When you acquire it, then you're looking to sell it, and maybe go into the methods you use to price it, maybe for quick sale, or method pricing it maybe for a longer-term land contract deal.
Yeah, I mean, I always price it as if I'm going to flip it for cash because I want to have that flexibility. And so what I'll do is I always first start at the Oracle, Google. I'll Google the property, and I'll see what comes up, and that is going to give me an indication of what's going on with that property. So I'll see similar listings for that property, and then I'll also contact the assessor, or I'll go on the assessor's website, or my VA will, and we'll get a report, and we'll see what comparable sales look like. If we can't find any good comps, then we might just option that property. Again, I want to know for certain that I'm buying it right. I don't want to take any risk. And then I'll let the market tell me, right? Sometimes I'll just do a quick option, put it up on Craigslist, and see how long it takes before I get an offer or get some interest in it, right? So I'll let the market sometimes just tell me if I can't find it. But that's what I'll do. And I'll also look at those sites like landandfarm.com, landflip.com. I'll call up those brokers as well that have similar listings and just ask them, hey, what's going on with this property? And they'll tell me. So
Another question. Yeah, another question came up. I might address some of this, Mark. It said, "What do you have? What does I'm assuming you, Mark, have to gain by telling us this? By telling us the secrets, aren't you creating more competition for yourself?" Mark. I mean, I think if you go to his website,
Scott, is this my wife? Who asked that question?
no, it's not. But it's certainly. I mean, you can go to Mark's website. He does have his passive income system is something you can subscribe to. We had Mark come on today as a guest to provide us with education. Certainly, if you want to go to his website to learn more about what he does and how he operates, you can. But I think you also mentioned at the beginning that more competition. You said that with the number of parcels out there, there's certainly plenty of room for everybody. There's too many deals for you or probably even 100 different people to do on your own.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's such a big market. I have an abundance mentality as well. My wife does not, and she thinks I'm crazy. But at the end of the day, this is not effortless, right? I can tell 1,000 people about this strategy, and 10% will try it, right? 10% are going to contact the county treasurer and get the list. Guess what happens when you try to get the list? It's hard. So, I mean, it's just human nature. Anything that takes effort, most people aren't going to do. So I don't mind sharing it. And what I have found is that the more I give, the more I get. My community grows. As my influence grows, my business grows with Frontier Properties because now I have people that I've personally trained and taught how to do this that I can wholesale land out to. And then they can wholesale land out to me. So it's mutually beneficial in that respect as well. And again, it's such a big market. If the day ever comes where I send out offers and they don't get accepted because people are telling me, oh yeah, there's 3 other offers from someone else and yours is lower, I'll probably stop doing this.
And another question, somebody said, where do you get your VA? What company do you use?
Yeah, I mean, you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find that prince or princess. A lot of them. And I like to go to Odesk first for a big project, right? Then maybe Elance. But I prefer Odesk. Now, if it's just a one-off little thing here and there, maybe I need a graphic done, or maybe I need someone to push out something for marketing. I like Fiverr.com a lot. It's unbelievable what people will do for $5. And because of the way that they have their system there, these people have to hustle. They have to do a good job. It's not like Odesk. I'm a little skeptical sometimes of these Odesk reviews. And I find I've had better luck lately on Fiverr than I have on Odesk.
Okay, another question. If you were moving from the states you mentioned, what are the criteria you would use as opposed to California, Nevada, Florida? Like if you were, I guess, looking to invest in states other than where you currently focus on, what other criteria are you looking at? I'm assuming probably a lot of demographic information of where people would be moving to if it's somewhere not California, Nevada, or Florida.
Yeah, there's a great website I like to use called smartystreets.com, and they'll give you all the demographics. You can plug in a zip code. There's tons of free sites like that now, like smartystreets.com, and you can kind of do a little bit of research before you start hitting your list and deciding which county you want to go after anywhere in the country. I mean, I've got some colleagues that they like New York and they like the East Coast. I'm like, great, I have one guy. He's 76 years old. He just did a deal in the Adirondacks. His first deal, he made over $36,000 on a flip. I was really shocked, and I was telling him, "What, Adirondacks, really?" But he did great with it.
Another question: have you ever invested in Georgia, and if so, what were the experiences? Positive, negative? Anything you could share on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia's a phenomenal state for tax lien investing, but not necessarily. I don't. For my niche, I don't love Georgia. Because they're just not that. People would rather be in Florida than Georgia. They'd rather be in Nevada. They'd rather be in California. As I said again, so it's not somewhere that I like to target. But again, using this model, you absolutely can do that. But I think that as far as like tax liens go in Georgia, like there's a huge interest and penalties there.
Right. Okay. Maybe can you take a moment? It's not a question, but just explain the difference. Anyone on the call, the difference between the tax lien and tax deed investing.
So basically, the tax lien is you are buying you're investing in, you're paying the back taxes for the county, and then the person they still own that asset, right? Whether it's a house or commercial property or a piece of raw land. Now, every month that they don't pay the interest and penalties on that lien, you continue getting a return on your investment. So, for example, like Arizona, you can go to a tax lien auction and you can bid down the rate. So I think here it starts at 16%, and you might be able to get, I know for raw land, because the hedge funds don't want raw land and the bigger players don't want raw land, you can probably pick up a piece of property for 16%. 95% of liens are redeemed. So it's not a great way to actually own the property. I want to own the property, so I look at tax deed counties where they are actually selling the asset to you and you get the deed to that property. Now, I will give you a disclaimer. If you're going to do that, most traditional title companies will not issue title insurance with a tax deed parcel. And there is a company out there that will do all the work for you. I believe I think it's called Title. I'll give it to you later, Scott. But there's a service out there that will be able to get you title insurance on those types of parcels if you need it.
Okay. And maybe following up in that same vein, can you ask?
I think it's taxtitleservices.com.
Okay, taxtitleservices.com.
Yeah, something like that. He was on the website.
Okay.
Not the website. He was on the podcast.
Okay.
Philip Schumacher. Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about the right sources for the documents needed to correctly make or close the sale? I know you mentioned sometimes you don't even use a closing agent. Did you develop your own forms, or are these something you got from an attorney or a website?
Yeah, I mean, when you first start, you can sign up for free at rocketlawyer.com, and they can review any paperwork that you need done. Deeds.com is a great way to pick up deeds and the paperwork. But what I'll do is, Scott, I'm really lazy, and no offense, I just don't like working with attorneys. So what I'll do is I'll pull the previous deed, right, from who's selling me the property, and I'll just duplicate that, or have my VA duplicate that, because I know that was prepared by an attorney and in that state. So I just duplicate exact language, and then just change it, the grantee and grantor.
And as far and for your land contract, is that something else that you developed on your own, or?
No, land contracts I had an attorney do, but it's very simple, and it'll work in almost all the states. Same thing with my purchase.
Once you get one, you can then probably make the changes for the subsequent ones, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and the purchase sale agreement as well. Yeah.
Question: somebody says, is this what we're talking about today? Can this be done part-time, or does it require your full-time attention to be successful?
No, this is great for part-time. Most people do this that work with me. They do this part-time. A few people do it full-time, but I think it's a great part-time gig, and then eventually you wake up one day and your passive income exceeds your fixed expenses, and then you make a decision: do I want to continue doing what I'm doing?
Another question: somebody said, what type of insurance do you usually get to protect? Obviously in buying raw land, do you still insure the property? And if so, maybe how much? Or
I just have an umbrella policy. I have a general liability policy. So if somebody goes, driving quads on my property, breaks a leg, and decides to sue me, I'm covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 1 o'clock. We don't have any more questions that currently come in the queue. So I would encourage anyone, if you have more questions for Mark, certainly you can reach out to him at thelandgeek.com, and he'd be happy to probably answer some questions and more about his system as well. If you have questions for me, obviously you know how to get a hold of us here at Advanta. give us a call. Mark, thank you. I think it was a great webinar, a lot of really good information. I could tell by the number of questions we got and the number of people that are participating that it was very good and very educational for those that joined us. So thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, we have recorded this webinar, so if you are listening to it on a recording, certainly you'll need to call Mark or myself for additional questions you have, and hopefully you've been jotting down those questions as we go. So Mark, thanks again.
Scott, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and thank you everybody for listening in. All right, goodbye.
Bye.